Thanks for joining today's webinar. We're going to be talking about generative AI implementation journey using Amazon Q for Business. My name is Paul Jassing. I'm the head of pre-sales in the US for Gen AI AML from Rackspace Technology. I have Dennis George from AWS with me today. Hey, Dennis, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. Quick introduction. My name is Dennis George. I am a worldwide channel senior partner solutions architect in AWS's Consulting Center of Excellence.
Thanks, Dennis. So who's Rackspace Technology? If you haven't heard of Rackspace Technology, we are a $3 billion company. We have 120,000 clients in 120 countries. We are part of the AWS Generative AI Partner Innovation Alliance Group. That's a very small subset of partners of AWS. We have implemented 62 plus Gen AI projects across the globe. And we have a lot of accelerators. We use Gen AI extensively within our company too. So what are we seeing in the market today about Gen AI? See, Gartner has done a study and basically said that more than 80% of enterprises will be using Gen AI by 2026. In fact, we see I meet a minimum of 3 to 5 clients a week and talk to them about Gen AI because they're very interested in deploying Gen AI for coming up with new data monetization, coming up with new options for revenue for their company, and also to see how they can reduce cost. So what are the impacts that we see because of Gen AI in the workplace? Productivity, right? Employees spend between 1.7 and 2.8 hours a day in tasks that are basically repetitive. So we can automate these tasks using Gen AI from a factor of 2 to 28. This study was done by American Productivity and Quality Center. See, Wharton Business School conducted an experiment with their business MBA students, and they gave one group of students Gen AI toolset to work with. The other did not have a Gen AI toolset to work with. The human AI team combination came up with 200 product ideas in just 15 minutes, which is 40 times more than the human only team. And then if you look at the quality, MIT did a survey and found that 88% of the respondents said, if I'm using Gen AI, it not only helps me to do more work, but helps me to deliver higher quality work. So no wonder companies are eager to implement Gen AI in their ecosystem. See, what are the barriers to implement Gen AI currently? So lack of expertise and security are the key barriers to successful implementation. So we did this study, another company did this study with 1,000 plus respondents, and this is what they came back with. By the way, if you don't know Rackspace, we are deep in security. We have a security practice. In fact, we created OpenStack along with NASA many years ago. So we have deep expertise with cloud security, data, and AI. And responsible AI is one of the main areas that we focus in. So what is Gen AI implementation? How can we implement it using Amazon Q for Business? I want to just touch on the what and the why. So within a short span of 2 weeks, we can help implement the generative AI application in your company. Just takes 2 weeks. The moment you sign, we go through the process, go through idea, which we'll talk about later. Within a matter of 2 weeks, we'll implement this Gen AI application in your enterprise. So how will it look? If you look at the left side of the screen, you see a sample of how it'll look. Obviously, we'll white label it with your logo so it looks custom to your enterprise. It's a fully managed generative AI powered assistant chatbot that you can have your own employees come in, query and ask questions from your enterprise documents, from your enterprise data, databases, SharePoint, Confluence, Slack, Jira. We've got about 40 plus connectors that you can connect to, and your employees can query all of those enterprise repository info that you have and get answers to questions. So this will help them to be extremely productive. They don't have to spend hours and hours looking at websites and multiple repositories to gather data. They can just quickly do a query, right? HR companies, we've helped a lot of large enterprises. A large retailer is bringing on like 10,000 users onto the system, Amazon Q, as a result of what we've done for them. And you can also use the why aspect of it, right? You generate accurate responses to your employee questions, and it's contained within the content that you decide to expose to Amazon Q for Business. In other words, there'll be zero hallucination because we will restrict the chatbot to say you have to respond based on the content that we give you, right? And it also supports access control. For example, Dennis is going to do a demo right after this, where you're going to see how the engineering group cannot see the data that the financial group is only got access to, supports access control. And then Amazon Q can impact every single function in your organization, right? There are a whole lot of use cases here. You have sales, marketing, sales doing sales script, forecasting, sentiment analysis, intelligent search, marketing, product management, engineering, human resources, operations. Amazon Q helps you to quickly leverage the power of Gen AI for your organization. So at this point, I'm going to hand this over to Dennis George from AWS, who's going to do a deep dive demo on Amazon Q for Business.
Thank you, Paul. I will be walking you through the steps for deploying a Amazon Q business application for a fictitious scenario. Let's dive right into it. Any company is an investment management firm that is looking to drive innovation and deliver results across their different departments, including finance and engineering. They have a strategic goal this year to leverage generative AI to improve customer and employee satisfaction while reducing operational costs. This scenario will showcase an example of how Amazon Q can be leveraged across various departments within an organization. I will demonstrate two distinct personas leveraging Amazon Q in their workflows. John Doe, who is a financial analyst at any company and wants to research Amazon's earnings results over the past few years, and Jane Doe, who is an engineer at any company. Any company leadership is looking to implement ESG goals for the company. Jane has been tasked to investigate their AWS footprint and look to ways to optimize their workload on AWS. She is new to her role and AWS's well architected framework and wants to learn more. Let's navigate to the AWS console as an administrator user looking to set up Amazon Q Business. First, let's review some prerequisites like identity management. Amazon Q can leverage IAM Identity Center, which is built on top of AWS Identity and Access Management to simplify access management to multiple AWS accounts, AWS applications, and other SAML-enabled cloud applications. Or Amazon Q can also leverage any third-party SAML 2.0 or OpenID Connect identity provider. While setup of the IAM Identity Center is not in scope for this demo, I'll quickly walk through the current state of the setup. We have our two users, Jane Doe and John Doe. John is part of the financial analyst group, and Jane is part of the engineering group. Next, let's walk through the S3 storage bucket that will be used as a data source for our documents. Both the departments have their data stored in Amazon S3. Let's review the S3 bucket structure. At the root of the bucket, we have two folders, ACL and data. ACL, as the name implies, contains an access control list JSON file that is used to manage user and group permissions for data within the S3 bucket. These ACLs will be enforced by Amazon Q when a user interacts with the Amazon Q Business GenAI assistant. Amazon Q will be limited to reference data that the user is authorized to access. The data folder has two subfolders, finance and engineering, and the respective user groups are authorized access to these folders. Let's quickly explore the contents in the data folders itself. Under engineering, we have the well-architected framework document, which is a 970 pages long PDF document. Along with that, we have a metadata file with the same name as the data file appended with a .metadata.json. We will explore the contents and the need for this metadata file later on. Under finance, we have Amazon's earnings reports, shareholder letters, and proxy statements from 2020 through to 2023. As an example, the 2021 folder has the previous year's annual report and shareholder letters. Now let's navigate to the Q Business console. As you can see here, I have an existing Q Business app created named Q Business _demo. We will leverage that to skip over the step of waiting for the crawling and indexing to complete at the very end. So let's create a new business app for now. I'll name it Q Business Demo 2. Like I mentioned before, we can either use IAM Identity Center or a third-party identity provider integrated with AWS IAM. I have IAM Identity Center already configured within AWS organization in the same region. And as you can see, Q Business has picked up on that fact. Next, we need to define the role that Amazon Q Business will use to access other services on your behalf. For this, I will choose to create a service linked role, which is a service role that will be managed by Amazon Q itself. For now, I will also remove the quick start user assignment for the access to the application. Next, you will choose to encrypt your data with a self-managed KMS key if you want to. By default, the encryption uses AWS owned and managed KMS keys. And finally, I will also create a new service role for Amazon Q Business Web Portal to use other service on your behalf. And then click Create. This process sets up the Q Business application. Next, I will add our S3 bucket as our data store. Here you see there is a banner which lets you select a retriever type. We can either choose between native retriever or Amazon Kendra. If you have an existing Kendra index, you can select that. However, for this demo, we are going to use the native retriever, which also comes with 40 plus data sources out of the box. One thing to note is that you cannot change the index once selected. You are asked for inputs like provision tier, enterprise, or starter. The former is recommended for production workloads, and the latter is okay for non production workloads, since this setting affects scalability and availability characteristics of the deployment. You can also select the number of units, which can go up to 50 units. Each unit is limited to 20,000 documents or 200 megabytes of data, whichever limit hits first. For now, we will leave it at default and select starter for the retriever type, since this is a non-production deployment. Now let's add a data source. Select S3, give it a name. We create a new IAM service role to connect to this data source. We select our S3 bucket. And then now we select the SACL file within the S3 bucket that enforces the authorizations based on user groups. Next, I'm going to exclude the ACL folder from the sync scope. And next, you select the sync mode, whether you want a full sync or an incremental sync when there are updates to the contents in the data store, and the sync frequency. I will select full sync and set it to run hourly at the top of the hour. Optionally, if you're connecting to a data source within your VPC, you could configure VPC and security groups. But since we are connecting to our S3 buckets, which is a managed object storage outside of the VPC construct, we do not need this. Finally, you see that since we are connecting to an S3 bucket as our data source, the S3 document ID will be mapped to a corresponding index field name by default. Then you add the data store. The data source has been created. Let's trigger a manual sync for now instead of waiting until the top of the hour. Let's quickly add user access to the application. Here we will add the engineers and financial analyst groups. And assign Q Business Pro subscriptions to both and hit confirm. I do want to show some of the important controls we have within the app, such as allowing Amazon Q to fall back to LLM knowledge. This effectively limits the responses from Amazon Q to solely RAG-based contextual responses based on the S3 bucket data source. You can explicitly block certain words. Let's quickly take a look at the data source sync. It's still syncing, so we'll not wait for this to complete. We'll skip over to the app that I have created from before, and where the data source sync is already complete and is configured to exactly the same way. Let's now use a different incognito browser and test the application. First as John as our financial analyst. I'm authenticating as John Doe. Awesome. So I'm authenticated and logged into the application. Great. Let's have John ask you what was Amazon's performance in 2023. Awesome. So it has generated results here. It's clearly gotten data from the data sources in the S3 bucket. Um, from the response you see here, I want to bring your attention to a few different things. Look at the response from Q. It has sources and even snippets with data sources, right? And even links to the document itself, right? The user can provide feedback to the response in the using the thumbs up and thumbs down, right? You can copy data, etc., right? Now you can also, like I mentioned before, our data is from 2021 through to 2023. So let me ask an out of scope year and see how it responds, right? It says, based on the information provided in the data source, I do not have enough information to comprehensively answer the question, right? The data source only contains information about Amazon's performance up to 2023. So this is great, right? Let's also look at another thing. So let's click on the source file to review the contents. What happened here? You see that the link is broken, and that is because the S3 bucket contents are configured to not be publicly accessible. This is where the file specific metadata can be used to override the URI for this link to point to a CloudFront distribution instead of the S3 source URI. I will demonstrate that shortly. Let's prompt further. Let's ask what's Amazon's year-on-year performance. Awesome. So we've got more results here. It does an year-on-year analysis and gives us compares data between a few different timeframes here based on the data sources. If you look at click on the sources here, it'll show you the exact files that it is gathering that data from, analyzing that data from, right? Now let's close this window and navigate to a new incognito window and kick off the workflow as the engineer. Let's log in as Jane Doe, our engineer. I was able to successfully authenticate. Being the engineer, let's see if Jane can access the financial data. As you can see, the content authorization is enforced, and the engineer, Jane, is not able to query contents from the financial analysts folder. On the contrary, if Jane was to ask questions around the sustainability design principles, you can see we get the design principles from the well-architected framework for the sustainability pillar uh, presented as response. It also shows the sources with the citations as before. Let's click on the source here and see if the link works. So now this link works. Why is that? This is because I've configured a metadata file that I'd initially shown for this particular file in the S3 bucket so that the source URI points to a CloudFront distribution instead. I can quickly show the contents of the metadata file. As you can see, I'm replacing the source URI with a CloudFront URL there. So this concludes our demo. In this demo, you saw an example of how Amazon Q capabilities accelerate business outcomes for companies across all sizes and industries. To summarize, the four things to remember are that it's really easy to build a Gen AI assistant experience using Amazon Q Business. You don't need deep AI ML experience. It's a fully managed service built on Amazon Bedrock. Second, it provides security controls and ability to leverage either native AWS IDP service like IAM Identity Center or leverage third-party identity providers that either support SAML 2.0 or OIDC. Third, you can confine the responses to your internal data sources so that all responses are generated based on RAG or retrieval augmented generation, and the responses are enriched with data source links, snippets, etc. for easy cross-referencing. And finally, you can configure administrative controls and guardrails to tune how you want the application to respond to user prompts. Thank you for your time. Over to you, Paul.
Hey, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for that deep dive demo into Amazon Q for Business. So team, if you're looking to see how can I leverage Amazon Q for Business, how can I implement Amazon Q for Business? See, we at Rackspace Technology, we can deploy Amazon Q for Business in your company with 3 of your data sources using our Amazon Q connectors in exactly 2 weeks. So I'll walk you through how it works, right? We do a complimentary ideate session or sessions where we work with you and your team to figure out what will be the best use case for implementation of Amazon Q for Business. By the way, this is completely complimentary to your team. So please reach out to us. In the next slide, you will see our contact email, and you'll also see our QR code to scan to get to us. So we will work with you and your team on a complementary basis to identify the right use case that provides you business ROI, right? The 2 major use cases that we see obviously is how to increase your revenue, right? What are the things you can do to increase your revenue? And secondly, what are the things you can do to decrease costs for your company? So both of these use cases directly impact your bottom line, right? It'll increase your bottom line as a result of doing this POC. And then the next phase is the incubate phase. So what is involved in the incubate phase, right? We set up a secure landing zone if needed. If you do not have a AWS landing zone, we will gladly set that up for you as part of incubate. We also have the ability to set up 3 data sources set up for you for the Amazon Q. The 3 common ones that we see are Amazon S3, Confluence, and SharePoint. We also see at some clients we've done Slack, even Jira. So we have 40 plus connectors that we can connect to. We can connect to your databases, RDS, Aurora, on-prem databases, anywhere. So we can deploy these connectors so that your users can get data, get answers, get questions answered by connecting to these data sources, right? The other piece that we do is also we deploy Amazon Q. um, we deploy the Amazon IAM Identity Center. What is that? So that is formerly AWS SSO. So we set up either 100 users, number of groups, so that after these 2 weeks, you and your users can pretty much start using this Amazon Q for Business chatbot right away. And we set up to 100 users, and if you need more, we'll be glad to set that up too. So these are the core components that you get as part of the Incubate offering. What we also do is we help you to come up with a plan, implementation plan, and a proposal to industrialize this to production, right? What does that involve? So that involves connecting to your native SSO that you're using. We can set up any SAML 2.0 implementations that you have for SSO today, Azure AD, Okta, Ping, whatever you're using. We can connect to those SSO and create the enterprise deployment for you so that you can open up to thousands of users, hundreds of thousands of users, million users, whatever you want to set it up to. And then we'll also open up additional connectors to RDS, other RDS database, whatever you want to connect to. We also follow our LLM. We have a 16-step LLM ops process within our enterprise that we deploy for all our clients. We'd be glad to bring that to bear to establish your governance and the operating model for the responsible use of AI too. And please reach out to us. We'll be glad to take it to the next step. You can see a QR, you can scan the QR code here to get additional details so that you can reach out to us. You also have an email ID that you can email us, and someone from our team would be glad to meet up with you. Thanks again for attending this webinar and looking forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you. Have a great day.